Today, I would like to discuss public service and the upcoming appointment to fill the vacant trustee spot. Public service should be among the most honorable professions. It does attract those of us committed to serving the public's interest. However, it also attracts those who would serve their own interests. They recognize by holding public office, the power they wield can be used for their own personal benefit, and they use that power accordingly. The people of Calumet are fast becoming a part of a growing movement locally and nationally to compel government to be more open to the public. This movement's growing momentum is attributed to decades of secrecy at all levels of government. This secrecy is an open wound on the public body. Every decade that goes by, more and more people have been infected with disgust, disbelief, and doubt about whether their government is acting truly in their best interest. The public body is not much unlike our own human body. When infection arises, the body calls upon its immune system to fight the infection. Public participation in government is the public body's immune system. The idea of open and transparent government is simple. The more people know what, when, and how their elected, appointed, and employed officials make decisions, the more likely a citizen can not only make effective decisions at the ballot box, but also to make effective decisions investing in their homes and businesses. The village of Calumet at all levels is currently battling its own infection, one that has been festering for as long as most of you have been alive. You would think that those who would use their positions for personal gain would not be elected. The reason why this keeps happening is by using the power of deception, misinformation, and denial of information, the general public is led to believe all is all right. The good news is there has been progress. Some village trustees, after seeing for themselves the mess the village is in, are responding to the public's calls for more transparency and seem to be taking action on the many issues that have long been neglected. Okay, now on to the candidates. There were 3 letters of interest submitted for this position. Joyce Bassano, Tony Bassano, and Sidney Dharmavaram all submitted letters. For the purpose of this episode, I'm going to consider the Bassanos as if they were one candidate. The Bassanos are longtime residents and business owners in the village. In all my encounters with them, they have always been pleasant and seem like really good people. I know they donated for the recent kids parade in the village, and for several years they have held positions in village government. I know many of you may be friends with the Bassanos, and I urge you to understand everything I present to you is the absolute truth, and in no way am I trying to offend anyone. I just think that if you do something while holding public office, you are likely to be called out on it. So if it's something that you don't want people to know about, don't do it. Okay, let's talk money. The Bassanos run what is most likely the most successful business in the village, Copper Room. So what I'm going to tell you might be surprising. Some of you remember the flyer that was circulated in November. It talked about how village government officials were the recipients of the overwhelming majority of village grants. This is that flyer. Let's look at these grants in total. I gotta let you know that all these grants were voted on by fellow trustees, and they all were holding office at the same time. So they basically were giving themselves grants. The ones highlighted in blues are grants given to village officials. The ones highlighted in red are the Bassano family. These documents list 37 grants and do not include 12 more given in 2015 and 2016. That makes 44 total. Let me be clear. This money is straight from your tax bill. Okay, we have 44 grants. How many would you think went to village officials? 5, 10, 15? Can you believe the number is 29? 29. 29 of 44 grants. That's better than 2/3 of all grants. I call that an overwhelming majority. And guess who has taken the most grants? That would be the Bassano family with 5. Why would such a successful business take from the village Surely there were other things that could have been done with that money. Just something to think about. Okay, now let's talk about accomplishments, or lack thereof. Joyce Bassano, as clerk, simply took minutes and never fulfilled the complete clerk duties as defined by state law, leaving the clerk's office with absolutely no oversight, allowing the sanitation fund, the street department to become a mess that they are today. Seems her purpose was to simply keep the control of the clerk's office in the hands of the DDA, the administrator, and the village attorney, who to this day advises village officials to circumvent the law. Tony, as village president, trustee, and DDA member, in every vote he cast, voted yes for every grant village officials received. He allowed ordinances to go unenforced, the sanitation fund to be looted, and the street department to deteriorate. He perpetuated the practice of premium snow removal contracts for some that exactly for who, how, and when they are actually charged has not been fully disclosed. But I can tell you this, from what I've seen so far, the charges are obscenely low. I'm sure we all wish we could get snow removal so cheap. To me, this seems to be very clear. The Bassano's attempt to re-enter village government is simply an attempt to keep these unfair and unethical policies of the past in place. The result of those policies are all around us. Overgrown lots, neglected properties, collapsed buildings. They surround us. They drive down our property values, and they depress economic growth and add to the social divisions in our community. The Board of Trustees should put aside their friendships and act in the village's best interest and not cast a single vote for the Bassanos. Now let's talk about the other candidate, Sydney Dummerhorn. Sydney has been instrumental in bringing lawful government back to Calumet. She's been a champion for the public and government alike, fighting not only for the public's right to know what their government is doing, but also for their elected officials' right to access public information so that they will be better informed to make better decisions that affect us all. By refusing to be a rubber stamp on policies long overdue for overhaul, she has accomplished a lot for the village. Sydney did not enter the village government with the belief that our public officials would be so maligned. However, over the course of Sydney's term as trustee, time after time, she found village officials would ignore the law, provide misleading and false information in attempts to force her to make uninformed last-second decisions. Sydney's demand for proper information from the village was met with more denial, more secrecy, and more illegal acts. No matter what the topic, village officials did everything they could to keep information from her. When sitting on the sanitation committee, she was denied basic information about our trash service. Negotiations with waste management took place without the knowledge of a single committee member. This document proves it. This is waste management telling us that they are going to raise our rates incrementally over the next 5 years. We could even have recycling in the village, but nobody knew about it. To this day, the village hasn't a clue who should get billed for trash pickup, and currently, those of us who do pay are footing the bills for those who don't pay. While Sydney was on the personnel committee, resumes were withheld from her and state-mandated procedures were ignored in an effort to affect the outcome of the search for a new police chief. Luckily, Sydney became aware of this and was able to alert the public. She insisted proper procedures were not followed and new interviews were held. These efforts led to background checks that revealed several questionable acts committed by the candidate, Joel Dobis. While other trustees tried to distract her from inconsistencies in his interview, she noted them and reversed her position on the appointment. If not for these background checks and police reports she insisted on reviewing, no one would have ever known the details. The recently passed blight ordinance is an example of her attention to detail. While some showed little to no interest, she educated herself, researched the alternatives, and listened to the public. An ordinance was drafted by the village attorney and was likely to be approved, its terms for the most part amicable to all. Most of you have never seen this ordinance because it was never adopted. Why? Because Sydney discovered the ordinance applied to some of us, not to all of us. It was easy to come to the conclusion that such an ordinance was unfair and would not be applied to everyone equally. The result of Sydney's attention to detail led to the approval of an ordinance that, if enforced properly, will govern all properties in the village of Calumet. This is an ordinance that aspires to lift Calumet above the good old boy quagmire that has encouraged and allowed some to prosper while causing others to fail, depressing Calumet economically and socially. Sydney has also been instrumental in keeping our current Board of Trustees informed, providing information to trustees that the village failed to provide. Sydney has always made herself available to the trustees and has attended more meetings than any village official, taping well over 200 hours of meetings this term alone. Sydney loves Calumet. She is committed to making the necessary changes in our ordinances, associations, and commissions to help all of Calumet prosper. This dedication to cause change in Calumet's government is what it will take to truly bring back Calumet economically and socially. No matter what your position is on any given issue, that position is influenced by the information provided to you or withheld from you. Regardless of her position, Sydney will always fight to provide the fairest, most open government Calumet has ever seen.